Nithyananda Paramashivoham.
Nithyanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvaditam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasya Dilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavaditam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Nithyananda, we welcome each and every one of you joining with us, sitting with us, watching us on Nithyananda TV, Kailasa's official TV channel. My name is Shri Maharaj and I'm a Balsant of Nithyananda Gurukul. In today's segment, we're going to be discussing about education, India's education, how it used to be before Macaulay and Max Muller, and how it has changed since the British invasion, since they had come and destroyed the Indian education system. Yes. So, issues with the India education system and how traditional Hindu system of education can solve them. India's economy before the British rule. Perhaps many of us do not know that India was the richest land till the British came here. Whereas Britain's share in world exports before was only 9% as against India's share of 19%. Today our share is only 0.5%. Most of the foreigners came to India in search of her fabulous wealth. Ernest Wood, in the book A Foreigner Defends Mother India, states, in the middle of the 18th century, Fillmore wrote that the droppings of her soil fed distant regions. No traveller found India poor until the 19th century, but foreign merchants and adventurers sought her shores for almost fabulous wealth which they could obtain there. In India, 35% to 50% of village lands were revenue free, and that revenue was utilized for running schools, conducting temple festivals, producing medicines, feeding pilgrims, improving irrigation, and more. The British, in their greed, brought down the revenue free lands to 5%. When there was a protest, they assured Indians that the government would create an irrigation department to take care of the irrigation, an education board would take care of the education, and so on. The initiative of the people were destroyed. But the rulers found to their chagrin that though they had conquered this nation, it was still strong, rooted in its own culture. They found that as long as the nation was aware and even proud of its traditions, their white man's burden remained as heavy and cumbersome as ever. India had at the time a very well spread system of education, and that system had to be made ineffective for their purposes. Now, most of us are taught to believe that the education was in the hands of the Brahmins and in Sanskrit medium, and that the other castes had no education. But here are the facts about how the British destroyed the Indian education system and made one of the most literate nations illiterate. So here we have a chart of India's share of world GDP before the British rule. And you can see how it was above 30%. Now slowly as the time passed, it is now one of the lowest GDPs as of the year 2003. The Charter Act of 1813 paved way for setting aside 1 lakh of rupees for promoting the knowledge of modern sciences. But foreign Christian missionaries even resented the nominal amount kept aside for the education of Indians. The British cut down the financial resources and brought in several regulations one after the other. Regulations like there has to be a puka building, etc. That was not the end. They invited Macaulay to decide how to divert the money, what should be the medium of instruction, and the mode of educating the Indians. He made English the medium of the instruction and diverting the money for English education. G.D. Trevelyan writes in Life of Lord Macaulay, a new India was born in 1835. What Alexander, Ashoka, and the Western missionaries had failed to do was accomplished by Macaulay's educational minutes, decreeing that India was to receive through English education the language of the West. The very foundations of our ancient civilization began to rock and sway. Pillar after pillar in the edifice came crashing down. But Macaulay did a more harmful thing, which is not generally known. He adopted the downward filtration method for educating the Indians. What is this method? The problem facing Macaulay was that Indians were numerous and the British were a handful. How were they going to educate the Indians? How could this nation be weakened so that in self-forgetfulness it would support the British Raj? The downward filtration method was formulated according to which the forward caste, even this was much later, was given preferences in schools. To put it in his own words, but it is impossible for us with our limited means to educate all in English. We must at present do our best to form a class of persons Indian in blood and color, but English in tastes, in opinion, in moral, and in intellect. The system of giving preferences to Brahmins in the government and missionary-run schools went on for nearly 100 years. In the meantime, other castes practicing any trade had lost their business due to the flooding of Indian markets with British goods and also due to the deliberate strangulation of the business by the British. Due to the land policy of the British, born out of their greed, the farmers had become landless labourers in their own lands, and the landlords the cruel stooges of the British. The systematic destruction of the Indian system of education deprived certain castes of education. Thus, over 100 years, these castes had become impoverished and ignorant. In Macaulay's letter dated 12th of October 1836, he wrote to his father, "Our English schools are flourishing wonderfully. We find it difficult to provide instruction to all. The effect of this education on Hindus is prodigious. No Hindu who has received an English education ever remains sincerely attached to his religion. It is my firm belief that if our plan of education are followed up, there will not be a single idolater among the respected classes 30 years hence, and this will be effected without any efforts to proselytize. I heartily rejoice in the prospect." That is the confidence with which they set out. But the missionaries, after years of toiling in vain, realized that their efforts of proselytization had not been successful. So after some years, there was a conference of missionaries in India in 1882. They sat together and discussed the effects of the education on the Brahmins. They found that though to an extent they were successful in taking away the Brahmins from their ideals, their conversion had not taken place. A decision to slowly target the other castes and tribals in the education institutions was taken. Looking back at where we were. So here we have a Shastra Pramana from Vakyartha Upanishad, verse 16. The syllable gu means darkness, and the syllable ru means he who dispels them. Because of the power to dispel darkness, the Guru is thus named. This was how glorious our Hindu heritage used to be. Kailasa is the only way to bring it back. So what is exactly Kailasa and who is the reviver of Kailasa? The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Jagadguru Mahasanidhanam, His Divine Holiness, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivoham, is the reviver of the Kailasa nation, the enlightened civilization, the greatest and only Hindu nation. Adepts of the science of reincarnation in Hinduism recognized Swamiji, who we lovingly call as avatar of Paramashiva at a very tender age. Revered and worshipped now as a living incarnation of superconsciousness by millions, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism manifested the best contributions of Hinduism to the world, including the science of power manifestation, yoga, and temple-based universities. Kailasa is a macrocosmic, ancient, enlightened Hindu civilizational nation which does not put importance on its territory alone. Kailasa is revived by the present living incarnation of Paramashiva, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Jagadguru Mahasanidanam, His Divine Holiness Bhagavan, Nithyananda Paramashivam. Vivekananda visualized it. Yogananda yearned for it. Aurobindo accelerated it. Osho worked for it. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi mandated it. And it is because of their sincere efforts and hard work for the last 200 years and with all their blessings, Swamiji has manifested Kailasa for all of us. Kailasa's supreme aim is to serve the religious and spiritual needs of 2 billion Hindus and the whole of humanity. Therefore, Kailasa is a consortium of multiple micronations, educational institutions including Hindu universities and schools, Gurukulas, de facto spiritual embassies, temples, temple monastery complexes, nunneries, food banks, annamandirs, animal shelters, the Goshala, libraries, Jnanalaya, organic farming, and more. Here we have a small video, Swamiji himself speaking about the Gurukul education system and how it is the only future going forward. It is the only style of education which can be for our future.
Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda 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 Paramashivoham.
Possibility of his ignorance and holds on to what he thinks as right. Master has to expose himself. Please understand, master has to expose student to himself. He has to expose him to himself, which creates a lot of pain. Shaken. So there is a possibility for a student to develop a subtle anger, vengeance, violence towards the teacher, thinking that whatever I say is saying no to it. Whatever I say is saying no to it. Anything which makes me happy is denying it. Maybe he is not just interested in teaching, he is interested in putting me down. There is every possibility. You can start developing the anger, understand? As a victim of the student's anger, victim of the disciples' anger, I tell you this. Many times I have been a victim of this disciples' anger, who are not matured enough to learn, but who go on uttering, repeating stupid words like a parrot. No, I have surrendered myself to you. I have surrendered myself to you. Please teach me exactly as it should be taught. Please make it happen as you want it to happen. The moment I put my hand on the purse, no. Even breaking your ideas about me is part of my job. Understand, many times I have been a victim of the so-called students' anger. The very education process in Indian tradition is awakening you. It is not just giving some words, ideas, concepts, theories, theologies. It is awakening you.
Yes. Sounded beautifully explained how the concept of Nava was unique only to Hinduism. How it created such an ambience to where the Guru and disciple, neither one of them were above each other or below each other. They were kept at the same pedestal. Because only the student is the teacher. All these fundamental concepts, all these gurus which existed in our Hindu education system, which existed in the Gurukul system, all of that got destroyed thanks to Macaulay, thanks to Max Muller, and everything else happened after. So along with me, we have a few devotees as well who are joining us today on the panel to be a part of today's discussion, to be a part of today's segment of why education has come to such a state, from how it used to be the Gurukul system to where it is currently standing right now. So along with myself, we also have Shri, Atma, and Notion, and Asha joining us from Canada. Thank you all for coming being a part of the process. We also have Leia joining us from Chennai, India. Thank you all so much for coming today being a part of the process. So before we embark directly, why don't you all go ahead and introduce yourself one by one, and then we can get started. Shri Nithyananda, maybe go ahead and introduce yourself for all of you. Please go ahead.
Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda 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 Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda.
Nithyananda, am I audible now? Yes, extremely sorry for the technical glitch. So, Sri Nithyananda, you can go ahead and introduce yourself for all our viewers, and after we all introduce ourselves, we can go ahead and get started with today's program. Nithyananda, you can go ahead and introduce yourself. Please go ahead.
Forward to being here. Yes, I've been blessed by Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan, Shri Nithyananda Paramashivam, the spiritual name of Sri Nithyananda Atmananda. So I grew up in Canada, and I became an elementary school teacher and a computer engineering technologist. I worked in that field since 1998. And in 2011, I took on the spiritual life full time. So I've been living full time on the graces and provisions of the cosmos. And I was initiated in 2015 by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism into the path of sannyas as a brahmachari. And I've been learning intensely about the life and the needs and challenges of humanity. And that's a little bit about myself. Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Nithyananda.
Yes. Yeah. My name is Arnoshan, and I'm from Toronto, Canada. And I am also a disciple of Swamiji. the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Jagat Guru Mahasannidhanam, His Divine Holiness Bhagavan Shri Nithyananda Paramashivam. I got to know Swamiji around 2013, and since then it's just been one amazing breakthrough after another. So yes, thank you for inviting me out to today's Vakyartha Sadhas. Nithyanandam.
Nithyanandam. My name is Shri Nityananda, born in Canada, Montreal. I met Swamiji in 2014 in a program, Inner Awakening 21-day retreat Swamiji conducted in Varanasi in Inner Awakening in India. And it was a very important shift in my life, and Swamiji gave a very positive environment and a lot of breakthroughs, which allowed me to shift my life and get initiated by Swamiji, and been with Swamiji and the Sangha since then. So thank you for having me on this board tonight. Looking forward for today's Vakyartha Sadhas. Thank you.
Nithyanandam all. This is Murali from Chennai, India. I have been with Swamiji from 2013, and I came to him to attend one Inner Awakening program. This Inner Awakening was a life-changing program, I should say. Rather, I can even say life-giving program, because back then when I look at that self, I thought I was totally directionless. I was not knowing where I was going, where I was heading. And so much so for the fact that I thought myself to be a very biasless, very rational, logical person. Swamiji, through his program, made me realize, he didn't tell me this, he made me realize that the human logic was a very shallow, narrow context from which we should judge anybody or anything. And since then, it has been a very, very memorable journey and very strong experiences. Many strong clicks have happened. Many of my cognitions have deepened, many cognitions have broadened, many cognitions have changed, and it's for the better. And they have happened so strongly that even when I look at my previous ideas, I was wondering how I could have ever been in that space at all. It is so strong a click that has happened. And today's topic is something very pet to me, because I'm in the field. I'm in the field of education. So I think, and I'm seeing in the outside world what today's education system means, how it's affecting the students, my student community. And I'm also able to see what Swamiji is bringing. So I think I'm a good prospective person to talk on today's topic. So thank you, Swamiji, for this giving me this opportunity today, and thank you, Maharaj, for giving this mic time.
Yes, I have. So, getting into today's discussion regarding the education system, how the education system has degraded to the current state it is in, whereas how the education system used to be. So, many times, if we know the source of a problem, if there's a pandemic, for example, or a spread of a disease, doctors will look for the patient zero. Who's the first person who was infected, how did the infection start, how did the infection spread? And so pretty much that is the same thing which actually I wanted to bring out here. Finding the patient zero, how we, being such a great civilization, having such great powerful cognitions, powerful truths, where there was nothing which could shake in the inner space of someone, where each and every person who grows up, each and every person who's educated directly goes to the guru, directly goes to the master and gets the education. So in such an environment, in such a learning space, with society being so beautifully built, being literally the ideal society, how were the British able to successfully infiltrate, how were they able to successfully destroy our backbone, how are they able to successfully, even now, make Hindus feel ashamed about themselves? So this is the question which I wanted to bring out in today's discussion. With however advanced we were, however advanced we still are, even after so much of degradation, how come we still allowed so much of, how did the injustice which happened to us happen when we were such a great civilization?
One thing I can share about this, it's the Hindu civilization, the enlightened civilization, was a knowledge-based ecosystem. And so I'm looking at it now from the context where we're always willing to learn something new. We're always willing to see what the other person has to say, willing to explore the new possibility. Unfortunately, in this case, the new possibility which was presenting itself was anti-Hindu. It was the anti-Hindu gang coming through different. But because of our sincerity, of the willingness to learn, the willingness to grow, it became a scenario where this willingness to grow, this willingness to learn, I don't want to say it got exploited, but it created a gap through which they could enter. And so within there, it's a space where it's not that Hinduism all at once got destroyed, no, because even now Hinduism is still standing, because Hinduism also has its own independent intelligence through the Guru-Shishya Parampara. Through the Guru-disciple relationship, as long as you stick with the Guru, you can never perish. Because Guru continues to inspire you, continues to strengthen you, continues to empower you with the right knowledge instead of the fed knowledge. And so looking into the context of what is the patient zero, I can say this is the patient zero where the anti-Hindu gang, the anti-Guru gang comes in with under the guise of new knowledge, new possibility. But this idea of new knowledge and new possibility is wrapped in a package called anti-Guru. Means don't go to your Guru, don't listen to the Guru. You should know, instead go to school. What you learn from Guru is not going to be useful for here or for that. No, you have to come to our schools to do this. You have to come to our schools to get this job, that job, and then this whole game. But ultimately it comes down to this space where the anti-Hindu gang, anti-Guru gang comes in with the guise of new knowledge. And yes, this is the initial take I can give on this topic.
Initial take from here. I feel that one point which really struck me in the presentation was when Macaulay was sharing about he was realizing that he was outnumbered and that his plan would not work. It would be hard for his plan to work because there were so many Indians to touch. And there were so little amount of British that could do some kind of work. So conclusion he came to is have a bunch of Indians who look like Indians and behave like Indians, but have a mental setup of British and have likes and dislikes of British. So from here, the main click is it's something which I also feel is very present in today's world. And it's deception through appearance. How easily we get into a kind of a high mood when things are presented to us in a certain way, but we don't spend the time, and perhaps we don't have the patience to look into the depth of what is actually sitting behind this appearance. That's one thing. I personally feel also that initially, like Hindus were living in such a higher state. I don't think they realized human beings could live in this kind of low cunning state that in which British came with. So it took some time for them to realize, and unfortunately, the British had expertise in doing that because that was not the first time they were doing it. So they were faster than they were faster, and once they started to convert few, Indians, and they labeled them as Brahmins and make them, high and all that. With the British context, then through them they could start to touch the masses of India and start their mission or whatever they wanted to do. So that's what I feel from here.
There's one quick point I wanted to bring out that really struck with me is as long as they were able to insert two things. One is forgetfulness, apasmara, through the things like the different, basically the reformed education systems. This is one. Two is bringing in the cognition of comparison. as soon as you bring in the cognition of comparison, one is higher than the other, then actually the work is done by itself. Then the fighting starts to happen. Then the segregation starts to happen. Then the enmity starts to happen. And then like it's like you said, it's the colonization. They were experts of their field. They knew exactly what to hit when. They knew exactly what to pinpoint. And really it is clicking now that as soon as the comparison was introduced, it's actually funny, the education system, the Macaulay's education system brought in two things. One, the apasmara, meaning it was straying away from the original Hindu context, the original Hindu knowledge. Two is the grade-based system, the comparison-based system. With these two things, the whole thing was easily removed, everything started to get diluted. So this is one click that I'm getting from what you shared.
Actually, when I think back about what might have caused the decline of that system and how Macaulay had actually succeeded in dismantling I think he started with inducing greed. He kindled the greed in people. That's what I feel would have happened. See, when Hinduism was practiced in its highest intensity, in its biggest glory, the Varna system was in place, by which, by the Varna system, not everybody had a lot of money in their hands. In fact, Brahmins were the poorest lot of the whole, poorest section of the whole society in terms of material wealth. But they were richest in terms of knowledge. But what this Macaulay would have done, I feel, is he would have said, like, if you come and study like this, you come and study these courses and work like this, then you'll also have money in your hands. So I think he actually induced that greed into people, and the natural Hinduism's natural way of life is that Varna system, where everybody gets everything's need. Everybody gets what he needs in life. So there is no need for one to have so much money. No, nobody is left out. Everybody's need is taken care of just like that. But when this Macaulay education system is put in place, more people get to work and more people will have liquid cash in their hands, and that was enticing some people, the innocent people. I think that that innocence is what this Macaulay and his gang capitalized on. I think that is where it started to decline. And how the Hindu education system can restore it back. See, when the Varna system is in place, you will know whom everybody will actually do what they are actually good at, not necessarily what they like, but what they are actually good at, what they will be actually best at, and they will contribute best without any disturbance. Like any you induce them into anything, nothing will deter them from what they are doing. So what will they do like that? So that way of looking at vocation, that way of assigning that way of assigning vocations or discovering one's passion will what actually help the society itself flourish. So that is why this Kailasa nation is needed, and this is my initial take. I'll elaborate further. Thank you.
Yeah, so why do you think that they targeted the Brahmins in a method of which they explained, which we saw in the presentation? They targeted the Brahmins, and through the Brahmins, making the Brahmins the people who they described as Indian in blood and color, but Westerners in taste and intellect. So why do they choose the Brahmins and not any other caste, any other type of any other part of the society? Why choose the Brahmins?
See, Brahmins are actually the think tank of the society, and they were the knowledge base. They were the knowledge base of the whole societal setup. They had the ultimate say in whatever it is, and it's not out of any power-based authority. They had the ultimate say because it was they who knew what they were doing, saying, and it is they who actually took the responsibility for everything. Brahmin is not a birth-based thing, but it's a mental setup. They took the responsibility. They worked through their minds, through their brain, and they did not actually enforce anything by way of force. They did not make something happen by force, but through knowledge. They knew what they were advising people. They knew what they were telling others. They had the actual complete knowledge base of whatever they are doing. So if these people are removed from the society, from the rest of the people, from the rest of the people there, then they wouldn't be able to think for themselves. They wouldn't be able to defend themselves. They wouldn't know what they are doing, why they are doing, and it will be easy to dominate them and rule over them. And that was the motive of the invaders.
One thing I like to add is Swamiji shared that Sanatana Hindu Dharma is a knowledge-based civilization. It's a civilization which flourishes in the age of knowledge. So Brahmins being the root of the knowledge, if naturally the British, what they wanted to do is to dismantle Sanatana Hindu Dharma so that they could enforce their narrative onto Indians. So if it's a knowledge-based civilization, then naturally, if you want to dismantle the civilization, you would go towards the holders of knowledge. So that I would feel that's why they went towards Brahmins, and started to make them, turn them into, Indian looking, but British thinkers.
Yes, one thing I can add to this is also this component of Tyaga. See, the Varnashrama Dharma was established on this basis of, or as far as Ranosan understands, it was established on this basis of Tyaga. How much Tyaga you have the capacity to manifest. And so from there, you decide which Varna you want to align to. It's your decision. If you want to manifest the ultimate Tyaga, then you will manifest that also. And the Hindu infrastructure, the Varnashrama Dharma, and also the political infrastructure of Kailasa is set up in such a way where any amount of Tyaga you're ready to do, there's an ecosystem provided for you to establish your superconscious breakthrough from wherever you are, from whatever level of Tyaga you're ready to manifest. So there was actually no such thing as comparison. It was you do whatever your maximum capacity is. You manifest your maximum capacity. But as soon as this, as soon as the Tyaga component was removed from the Varnashrama Dharma, then it was very easy to say that, oh, Brahmins are higher, Shudras are lower. And the whole comparison game starts to happen, the whole fight starts to happen, the whole greed and fear starts to happen. And then from there, the enmity against the Brahmin community starts to happen because, oh, these guys are always so high, these guys are always looked at so nicely, they have the high titles, they get paid so much, this, that. Because the Tyaga component is completely lost, because the context is completely lost. The reason why you're doing what you're doing is completely lost. Ultimately, it comes down to the original context for what is Varnashrama Dharma was lost. As soon as you can insight, again, it comes back down to the apasmara. When the context for why you have what you have, why you do what you do, why Hinduism had this specific infrastructure known as Varnashrama Dharma, and the value it had, the quality it added to life. As soon as the forgetfulness about these things happen, then it's very easy to start playing the game of delusion, to start playing all the fight and the drama and all these things. So this is also my take on why the Brahmins started to get attacked, is the context of what is a Brahmin in itself was first lost. And then from there, it was more seen of like, oh, Brahmins are higher. And then it's kind of like how people look at higher class people. They're like, oh, these guys always think they're so big. And this, the jealousy starts to happen. The comparison again. So this is my take on this topic.
I also feel the Brahmins being the source of knowledge, people used to go to Brahmins to get insights about anything. So it's like the visualization from here is like, it's like a counselor, right? So if people go towards Brahmins to get insights about whatever it is about life, because that's the role of the Brahmins. Brahmins are supposed to, experience higher insights and share them in various ways and about various dimensions of life, whether it is, health, knowledge about the ultimate, or how to live, or all these things. So I think that Swamiji told us at some point to watch the movie Sierra, and he said that was a good representation of how they worked. And in the movie, you can clearly see how they British literally terrorized Indians, and the Indians they were not like, they couldn't believe like people could behave like that, because in the mental setup which was grown in Sanatana Hindu Dharma, there you could not go that low. So when they were witnessing something that was going so low, they were literally shaken. So in that space, I believe that the Brahmins, some Brahmins took refuge for the sake of saving their lives. They took refuge under the British, and that's where the British started to brainwash them and use them for their purpose.
To add on to your point, Sri Ashutosh and Varunoshan as well, that's actually why Swamiji asked us to see that movie was, we Hindus did not cognize or even think that a person can stoop so low. And even in the Satsangs Swamiji had given Swamiji had given last night, Swamiji explaining about how cunning certain anti-spiritual elements, anti-Hindu elements are, where even a lot of the Adi Navasis themselves are not even able to cognize and understand the danger which will be able to be caused to them. And so fundamentally that was our problem, because we were unable to cognize, unable to fathom the dangers which are possible to us. And it is, you can either say ignorance or you can say innocence, whatever it may be. Fundamentally we were not prepared for such a situation, for such an attack. And that is where again and again Hinduism gets destroyed, simply by exploiting the ignorance and innocence which we Hindus are carrying. Another problem which Swamiji again and again likes to say, Swamiji again and again says in his satsangs about Hindus being reluctant warriors, where seeing the battle, being prepared for war, knowing everything a warrior is supposed to do, but not willing to wage the war, not willing to take that stance, pick up the weapon and fight the war. This is another aspect of which back then and even now, something which we are still suffering with, something which we still have not overcome from ourselves. And one of the biggest reasons for this is the damage which has been done to us by Macaulay, by Max Muller, where they have made Hindus embarrassed about Hinduism. And that is the ultimate damage anyone can do to a person, where you make them embarrassed about themselves completely, where they completely try to deny themselves and try to become someone else. And because they are able to successfully do this to the Brahmins, like Ranoshan, like Murli, like all you guys, like all of you had shared, because they were able to successfully do this to the Brahmins, it was very easy for them to do this to everyone else as well. So one of the ways Swamiji is trying to bring back Sanatana Hindu Dharma, trying to make this education system, trying to bring back the true legitimacy of Kailasa, of Hinduism, is attending any one of the programs Swamiji has offered till date. It is fundamentally to bring people to that space of being a Brahmana. So when we say Brahmana, what do we mean by Brahmana? Is it someone who's just born into the caste of a Brahmin, or someone who's practicing, someone who's living those truths? And some people may argue for either way, but the point which I wanted to bring out here is both. People who are born into the caste of a Brahmana or into a specific subsect of being a Brahmana, it has its own benefits, it has a certain strength to it. Some people, it's like being born as a Brahmin but doing the work of a software engineer or a clerk or something else like that. You are built to fly, but instead you're doing the job of a bullock cart. So that is pretty much the same thing which is happening when a Brahmana, not living to his full potential, not living as the way a Brahmana is supposed to live, but doing other things, trying to indulge themselves into other actions. And it's like when you have the ability to fly, but then you're arguing saying, why am I allowed only to fly? Why can I not do the job of a bullock cart? Why can I not do the job of a tractor? Having this kind of silly arguments is fundamentally the same thing a Brahmana who's born into that caste is saying about why he should follow into the tradition of his family, the tradition of his community. So this is the Brahmanas who are born into the family. The other type of Brahmanas, the Brahmanas who decide and become Brahmanas just by the sheer power of their will and the initiation of the Guru. The person who practices the tattvas. That is how Swamiji is transforming all of us into Brahmanas. The people who are born into the caste of a Brahmana, it will be so natural for them to be living in that ecosystem. And even though the Indian mind, the Hindu mind is created in such a way where it is designed for living in a multi-dimensional logic of the cosmos, doing things like math, doing things like writing computer programs, doing things in engineering, science, whatever the field may be. As again and again we share in statistics how Hindus are the largest ethnic group in the world, how Hindus dominated almost pretty much every field which is available to humanity, to society. So because of we are designed for something much greater than modern society has already created and laid the rules down for human beings to live. Because it is created for such something bigger, doing all these small things are so easy, and that is why we are excelling in all of these fields. So when we say Brahmana, there are two aspects. One, we have to enrich the Brahmins in the Brahmin community, why they should take up after their ancestors, why they should continue the path which the family they were born into. And the other side, the other Brahmanas, who by decision, by practice, by the initiation by the master, by the Guru, living that space of Brahmanatva. Because only from that space, only then you can educate others. And only when you educate others, only then you can be a trendsetter. Brahmins are the ones who are the trendsetters of society. And we need more and more trendsetters to change the way Hinduism is, to change the way people feel about Hinduism especially. So, every program Swamiji is offered till now, every satsang he is giving, it is fundamentally for that purpose of making people into trendsetters, making people into Brahmanas, practicing Brahmanas. Where they're not Brahmana just by name or by community, but Brahmanas by living these principles in their life. Swamiji is conducting the Paramashivam program which is going on currently, and personally he himself will be conducting many of the sessions in the upcoming month. For more information about the Paramashivam program, the program Swamiji is continuously, which has been continuously running for the major part of last year, and which had been starting from 2018. Swamiji is going to be giving a super conscious breakthrough to the program which gives super conscious breakthroughs. For more information about the Paramashivam program, you can visit paramashivoham.nithyananda.org. Now we have a small video about the Paramashivam program. Please stay tuned.
The time is ripe. The world is ready. You are going to experience literally Paramashiva. Most powerful, intangible but definitive, intense processes. This is the most powerful spiritual nuclear explosion, the strong force of Kailasa landing on planet Earth directly. One thing I can be sure, you will not exist end of the program. I can guarantee that. Only Paramashiva will be there.
Yes, we're back. So, we have a few more minutes before we have to conclude today's segment. Why don't we all go around once and share our final takeaway? We've gone through how the Gurukul system was destroyed. We've gone through the fundamentals, how from where they started, and how step by step they broke down Hindus, they broke down the fundamental beliefs of us, made us feel embarrassed of our own religion, and we have also discussed the current state Hindus are in. Going forward, what are some of the ways, some of the steps, some of the things which we can do now to build a strong inner image, to build the self-esteem of Hindus, make Hindus not feel embarrassed about their own religion.
The main take from here is see, Sanatana Hindu Dharma was damaged and destroyed to whatever extent it is alive today by basically destroying the Hindu context, by corrupting the Brahmins. So what I feel that Swamiji is doing is he is giving us the context, so that the role of the Brahmin can be brought back to life, so that the context of Sanatana Hindu Dharma can be experienced, lived, and enriched to others, and that would bring this the Dharma Chakra back into its full glory and its full happening. So really, experiencing Hinduism, having deeper insights and context about the richness and the vastness of Sanatana Hindu Dharma, and reaching out to others and enriching others about this context, so that they feel comfortable living. There's many Hindus who actually like Hinduism, but for some reasons they don't feel like they don't feel comfortable living it or practicing it. So that comfort, that ecosystem needs to be recreated for Hindus to practice Hinduism in the way it is meant to practice, and in the way they actually deeply want to practice it. Thank you.
Yes, main takeaway from here is, end of the day, the confidence on Hinduism was lost. Once the confidence was lost, then everything started to come after that. And really, to address this, the confidence, naturally, it has to be restored for Hinduism. Best way to do this is Gurukul. Gurukul gives you, it's such a life positive, empowering way to exist, to be brought up in a space where you're introduced to yourself as you are. Gurukul is what? It is home of the Guru, literally living around the Guru, always being in the space of mirroring the Guru, imbibing the Guru, radiating the Guru. The space where really you start to see why we do what we do. What is Hinduism? Why Kailasa? All these things really start to imbibe and radiate, and you really start to flower as your unique superconscious expression. The whole idea of, just coming back to this thing of comparison, the whole idea of comparison is lost, because you are manifesting the best you. You're manifesting your unique Paramashivoham, which is unique to you. And so once that starts to happen, then the beautiful contribution lifestyle starts to happen. Active lifestyle starts to happen. You start to build such a beautiful ecosystem around you, being raised in the ecosystem of Gurukul, and then flowering. You become an ecosystem in and of itself. And so main thing I can say, just to wrap this up, is initially, for some reason or another, in different ways, the confidence on Hinduism was lost. And the first thing, I remember Swamiji sharing how the first thing the colonizers came and did was they destroyed the Gurukul. As soon as the Gurukul was destroyed, then everything else was easily destroyed. I don't want to say easily, but everything else came after that. But first thing was Gurukul. And now, same thing when we're reviving Sanatana Hindu Dharma, when we're establishing the ecosystem of Kailasa, Gurukul is the best way to really give the confidence back to Hindus and Hinduism. This is my takeaway.
See, how can we avoid the mistakes that have happened in the past? Actually, when I analyze where these people are batting for anti-Hindu phenomena or anti-Gurukul and all that phenomena, if you see that, I see that they actually cognize the wrong effect that had happened. Some exceptional cases where some mistakes have happened, they want to generalize that. That is one thing. Or they take something in a wrong sense, without understanding the true implication. They don't see the bigger picture. I think that needs to be avoided. If you very closely analyze what they are talking, their line of argument, you will see just only the first one or two steps from what they see will be reality. The rest will be what they presume will be the further culmination from there. So it is not reality. You think that this is what will happen later. You think that this will happen later. So it is your imagination and nothing more than that. So if we actually go back and analyze the roots, if we analyze what Varna system really means, what Gurukul really means, what this Macaulay system had actually done. If you see the whole picture, then things will take a better turn, is what I feel. If you just imagine what will happen, what would happen from here and talk from that, nobody can do anything. What has happened, that's the only, you have to cognize reality, not go by what you imagine. So I think the problem starts with this imagination. Only the first few steps after the effect is reality. Anything else after that is imagination. So stop imagining and see what is really happening. And that reality, you should take into consideration the full picture, how Gurukul was, what Gurukul was. When see, we are not trying to see, that is a very important point about Hinduism, I'd like to say, and in comparison to the other faiths, the Abrahamic side of religions, the religions are all more futuristic. Means they are trying to establish something what they are where they think is ideal. But what Hinduism is, we are trying to restore a glory. I think this, I wanted to bring this point in all those other sessions, but I think this is relevant to say. I got it today. Got to say this today. See, we are actually trying to restore a glory. So when do we say that this was fully in vogue, and what we are able to see in those times, which we don't see in those times, in today's times. So when you do this comparison, you will understand where we are lacking today, what was there in those days. With that comparison in mind, if you understand Kailasa, you will really appreciate it, flourish it, and support it happening. So that's what I will say as my last point today, final take today. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nithyananda. Yeah, it's been awesome being here. There's just a couple, maybe a few things. Mangala Maharaj was mentioning, also we're sharing about the lack of willingness, being a reluctant warrior. And so this is one of the reasons like why Bhagavad Gita is sort of regarded around the world as in many senses the most beneficial text that exists. I mean, even in Western universities, right? So that's the crux of it. Arjuna is there and he doesn't want to fight, right? And that's what we're facing, the parental conditioning. So yeah, that aspect is there for sure. And yeah, just one of the other questions would be like, what are we going to do? I would just ask that to people. Where is the place that you can show, maybe 2 or 3 things, where's the place that you can show where Hinduism would not be destroyed, number 1. And then number 2 would be, who is the person that can authentically revive it? Meaning that it's from the perspective of Dharma, not like as Murli was speaking, not from a indoctrination dogma, but from Dharma, meaning if we listen to what life is and how to live without causing suffering to others, who is the being that can do that? So I think those 2 aspects, I would ask that question to people. Where is the place that Hinduism will not be destroyed? Who is the person who can make it happen? And then third, I'll throw in also that our mind and the even the mind, your mind is not going to give you the answer. And this is the thing. So the only way to liberation is having the enlightened vision. And the only way for a quote unquote regular human to have an enlightened vision is to get it from an enlightened being. So we can do all the thinking and talking and learning we want, but even that's not going to make a solution. So I feel that there are those 3 and 4 aspects, you know. One is it's always about overcoming our own ego. And then where can anyone point to a place where Hinduism will not be destroyed? And if you can, who is the person who can revive it from the spiritual tradition? Because that's what it is, an agamic tradition. And then on top of that, anyone who's going to contribute to making that happen, we don't need to rely on I mean, frankly, we don't have to rely on our own research and cognitive ability and ability to study, right? When Vivekananda reveals that amount of knowledge, it would take many lifetimes to study what he could reveal. And obviously Swamiji is the same way. So I would just add that it's a spiritual foundation. It's a source of life. That's what Agama is. That's what the Guru is. That's what Hinduism is. And it doesn't come from mind. It comes from, you know, being a gana, a ray, being one manifestation, expression of the enlightened being. So that's what I would share. Thank you, everyone. Nithyananda.
Let's thank all of you for coming today, sharing your points, sharing your views, your cognitions, your powerful truths with all of us, with all our viewers. Swamiji says that when he was speaking about Hindu voting, Swamiji said that simply casting your vote alone isn't enough. Even though casting your vote is important, it's important as well to share the reason why you have casted your vote in such a way. Because it is not just for us, it is for the sake of posterity as well. For them to take better decisions, better educated choices based on our knowledge, based on our decisions, based on our thinking. So this discussion we are having today, this program, this segment directly is contributing towards the building of the Kailasa nation. And all of you today are taking part in that, helping in towards building the Kailasa nation. So thank you all once again for coming today and being a part of this Vakyartha service. Now it's time to prepare ourselves to receive Swamiji, welcome him to the Nitya Satsang. Please sit straight with your head, neck and spine in a straight line. Close your eyes and bring your awareness into your Ananda Gandha. Visualize yourself as Paramashiva. Visualize Swamiji sitting there in your Ananda Gandha as Paramashiva with 25 heads and 50 hands. Now, start chanting the Mahavakya mantra, Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham, and allow the mantra to reverberate throughout your entire body. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham.
Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham.